के जल से उठता है।
A remarkable character in the corpus of classical Arabic literature is the figure of the refined trickster. The refined trickster is a master of language who charms his way into circles of intellectual, political, and social elite and swindles them through a performance of intellectual talent. In a way, he exists as the embodiment of pure intellectual might that can sway rooms otherwise hostile to outsiders. He threatens the corridors of influence with style. In other words, the refined trickster, an intellectual without verifiable lineage, and sometimes even without consistent scruples, always punches up. If the refined trickster punches up, the eloquent fool punches down. Eloquent fools are the first conscripts of a deadly system that wishes to sanitize vicious projects. Today, many eloquent fools march dutifully in the twisted lanes of public intellectualism in India. Many rhetorical tricks up their expensive sleeves. They explain away complex matters like religious history with unfortunate analogies. These eloquent fools are platformed on every nook where they articulate the unsavory. They point fingers at the few in front of the many. The sole purpose of their eloquence is to serve authority with the single-mindedness of a crashing tide. The real tragedy of eloquent fools is that they begin to believe their own tricks. Such has been the case of the atypical Javed Akhtar. Akhtar has had a long career in films and lately in the tepid Indian media landscape. His illustrious career as a lyricist, which is no doubt legendary, made him especially eligible for a second innings of sorts in the public intellectual circuit in India. The second innings coincided with the rise of the internet as well as the profusion of literary festivals in which he is a staple guest on the politics of Urdu, religion, and Islam. His eloquence is at its finest when addressing the trappings of fame, during which he often reflects movingly on the deep scars one endures along the path of faith. Most often, however, his eloquence is directed at a subject he knows little about, religion. His fascination for berating this thing he calls religion is reminiscent of the new atheist movement that apexed in the 2000s and the early 2010s in North America and Europe. Amongst this movement were the famous or infamous Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, from whom Akhtar has received an award, and Sam Harris. As a scholar of the academic study of religion, I can safely tell you that scholars refer to their writings on religion only and only for the purposes of how not to write about religion. Further, their curious case of their special hatred for Islam, which culminated into disastrous political positions such as the vigorous support of the US invasion of Iraq, is well documented. The same is true of their eager support of the horrors in Gaza carried out, as it were, upon a purported biblical promise. Put simply, the lesson to take away from the case of the new atheists is that a critique of vulnerable communities without an equally principled critique of the coercive capacities of the nation state, which is to say, of nationalism, is to be an eloquent fool. Javed Akhtar, it pains me to say, is no different. Akhtar's flippant remarks about religion in general and Islam in particular often attract a lot of talk, though rarely any inspection. He was recently disinvited from an appearance for his previous statements on Islam, which made the news, but he's also always invited to many forums precisely for his previous statements on Islam. Rather than pass judgments on why he should or should not be invited, I find it more fruitful to reflect on Akhtar's style of thinking regarding religion. Akhtar's talking points are more or less taken from the New Atheist playbook. These include a singular focus on the implausibility of miracles, a dismal understanding of scriptures, a compromised sense of history, a sanctified view of science, and, of course, a free pass for nationalism. Just like the new 80s, he shows, for example, almost no awareness of the role modern science played in the development of biological racism or the racial sciences in the modern world, a phenomenon very well documented by historians of science. Akhtar, who articulates his views in Urdu and English, gives these tired tirades about religion a hint of intrigue, thanks to his extraordinary wit. Also, he surpasses his new atheist predecessors in eloquence and charm, with perhaps the exception of Christopher Hitchens. However, when one looks past the wit, one finds an unoriginal script written by American neoconservatives who cosplayed as scholars of religion unsuccessfully. Now, for almost a decade, Akhtar has peddled embarrassing theories about religion, Urdu poetry, and Islam that, in the face of scrutiny, are nothing more than eloquent translations of WhatsApp forwards. Akhtar's compromised views on religion would not even merit much attention if they were not repeatedly blasted on digital circuits, passing them off as expertise. Now, in a recent interview, the veteran lyricist presented a bizarre explanation of Muslim exclusion that has gone unnoticed. When asked about the effective ban of Muslim families from residential buildings, a phenomenon far too common, Akhtar ventured a long and convoluted explanation. It was in effect the victim's fault, he said. After all, explained Akhtar, who else should be the recipient of partition's pent-up hatred but Muslims? Exclusion from housing opportunities is an apartheid practice. Akhtar's putrid suggestion is that when confronted with apartheid behavior, Muslims must lend a sympathetic ear to pathologies of majoritarian power. Now, one could be generous and view this line of inquiry as a poor attempt at psychologizing the aggressor. However, the awful thesis of Akhtar's explanation competes only with the smugness with which it was delivered. Despite his enviable tenure as a terrific film writer and lyricist, Akhtar has for far too long slid behind a fog of wit, past which exists nothing more than a swamp of silly analogies shrouded in shady applause. As and when the dust settles on the Islamophobic dispensation of public intellectualism in India, Javed Akhtar will find himself, like many before him who wagged their fingers at the deliberately dispossessed, to be the eloquent fool. And for now, I leave you with a line of poetry. किसी अहले हुक्म के हर्फ से है मुस्तकिल बेहतर, किसी अहले हुक्म के हर्फ से है मुस्तकिल बेहतर, हमारे दर्द का इस दौर में भी बेजुबान होना।
के जहाँ से उठता है ये धुआं, कहाँ से उठता है